Mark Ryan. I thought I'd run you through the Zscaler private access APIs that we are releasing. So I'm on the development cloud at the moment, so this is internal only. This is alpha. Going through QA at the moment, but it'll soon get to the beta cloud and then on to production. So we'll take a couple of things to look at. So I'll quickly sign in here. Look at my console, and you'll see a new section here, public API. So I've got my client credentials and my web tokens over here. So I've got a client credential that's created, and as I log in, I will get JSON web tokens. So let's take a look here. For example, here is my the API endpoint, and I can log in. I've got my secret in there and my identifier, and this will demonstrate the access to the API. There's a number of endpoints. So in this iteration, we're going to enable things around application segment creation, servers and server group creation, IDP configuration, the policy that all goes along with that, and the SAML endpoints and things. So for example, if we take a look here, I've got the endpoints for my applications, and I can read the applications as a get. I can get more details on specific applications if I want. And I can delete applications. And if I look in here, I want to look at the drill down on the post for the application creation. There's an example here of the model values that are needed to do the application creation. And then we demonstrate, if this is successful, what the response should look like. So as we go through there, if we look over here, we can look at the web tokens, and you'll see because I logged into the UI here, we got a token created, specifically this one, and you can see it has an expiration time of 58 minutes. So every token has an expiration time of 3,600 seconds or 1 hour. So as you go through and you run your API, you will either want to refresh those tokens as you get closer to that expiration time, or regenerate new ones. So let's just take a look at what I've got set up in here. I have no application segments created, no segment groups. I also have no server groups created. But what I do have are my connectors and my connector groups defined here. Interesting. I think essentially I need to refresh this page and app connectors. I'm in the wrong screens. So here are my app connectors. I've got one called London one, and it's in a connector group called London. So the API doesn't cover connector creation, but it does give me the ability to read connector groups and things like that. So what we're going to do, I'm going to jump over to a bit of Python here. So I'll run you through what this bit of Python is going to do, and then we'll run a demonstration. So imports a bunch of modules. I've got my endpoints. I've got an endpoint for the authentication and an endpoint for the actual API controls. Here is that client ID and my secret. And I do need to know my customer ID. My customer ID I can see if I scroll down here to company. I can see my tenant ID here. So I build up those couple of URLs. The URL for the authentication, my client credentials. I'm going to build my data, which I'm going to post for my sign-in, so my client ID and my secret. And then I'm going to use these different endpoints that I've constructed for my connector group, my server group, my application group, and the actual application. So I've built the URLs here at the beginning. So I go ahead and post the to the login URL, and I'm going to post my login data, and that will return a piece of JSON, and I'll extract from that piece of JSON the access token, which is returned. That's my bearer token, the JWT, that can be used for all of my subsequent access to the API. Now I'm specifically interested in building an application segment that includes all of my Active Directory domain controllers. So the easiest way to find your Active Directory domain controllers, I've got my domain, which is welshgeek.net. So I'm going to do a DNS SRV record lookup to return LDAP tcp.welshgeek.net, and then I'm going to build all of those into a concatenated string. So let me show you how that kind of looks. Dig srv underscore LDAP underscore tcp welshgeek.net, and this is a list of all of my domain controllers in my domain. Obviously some of it's a bit of a spoof, but you get the gist of how that all looks. And so we'll end up with a string which says domain controller 45, comma, domain controller 40, etc., etc. That's what that piece of JSON, bit of Python code there does. So I know what my ports are as well for Active Directory. In fact, I've missed one off the end here. So this is go port 88 to 88, 135 to 135, 139, 139. So these are your ranges. So it's a pair. The only other thing that I need is to cover the additional ones at the high port range. So it's we can always edit this. We need the high ranges for RPC, so we could add those at the end. We could go from 45,000 up to 65535, for example. So we can add those on the end. Although I think I've got a bit of a typo in there somewhere. Oh, there. So you can update the ranges and things like that. So now what I'm going to do, and you wouldn't ordinarily do this, is we'll start by creating, by reading the connector group. So we do a get, and we return from the connector group URL, and we return the list of connector groups. Now I know I've only got one, so I'm only interested in the first value, which is the connector group 0. So I get the connector group, and now what I'm going to do is create a server group, and that server group contains just the one connector group. Invariably, we don't want to have people building more and more server groups, so you'd possibly just build one server group. But if you're doing from first principles, this is necessary. So I construct the piece of JSON, and then I issue the server group, and I say it's a post of the data, the new server group data, to the server group URL, and this will return back the JSON data that gives me the ID of that new server group. I can then go ahead and create the application group. From that application group, the application group contains just this, well, in this case, I'm going to build the application group that's going to be empty, and then I return back the ID of the application group, or the JSON that gives me the application group ID. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an application segment called Active Directory, and it's going to be in the application group that I created here, which has a specific name. and then I'm going to post in all the FQDNs that we created originally, and it's going to be referencing the server group that we created and the TCP ports and the UDP ports that we defined up here. So this is the definition of that application, and then we're going to post that data, and we should end up with an application segment created. So as we run through this, we enumerate the FQDNs, we get the connector group names, we build a server group, we build an application group, we build an application, and the application is in the application group that references the server group, and we should all be good. So I can now run that. I can run that piece of Python. API dev.py is what it's called, and that will go off and do all of those things for me. With a bit of luck. Okay, that's executed. So if I then come back over here to my admin console, I can look in my application segments. There is an application segment that's created with those 52 domain controllers in it and those ports. It's in a segment group called Active Directory Server Group, and it's in a server group, or it references the server group Active Directory Servers. I can see the segment group that was created here. I can see the server group that was created here also, and that references that London connector group that was there from before. So hopefully that was useful. Demonstrates the API, demonstrates where the endpoints are and the different constructs, and hopefully we'll get through the QA cycles and get this onto beta so that you can test it on your environment, and then we move through onto the production cloud. Thank you very much.